Let's start with something people don't say nearly enough. The most dangerous moment in a rising star's career isn't losing, bad press, or even injury. It's the moment the world decides it owns you, before you've had the chance to define yourself. And right now, that moment is unfolding for Alexandra Eala. The world isn't even pretending to feel guilty about it. Billion-dollar brands are closing in. Misinformation is spreading faster than her actual match results. And quietly, a nation of over 100 million people has placed its pride on her shoulders, while she's still just trying to play tennis. This is the story of Alexandra Eala. The sponsorship battles being fought in her name, the viral narratives trying to rewrite her journey, and the unfiltered truth behind how a young girl from Quezon City rose to become the highest-ranked Filipino tennis player in history. But to understand where she is now, you have to go back to the beginning, and it's far more remarkable than most people realize. She was just 8 years old. That's when she signed her first sponsorship deal, not because of pressure from her family, but because those around her had already seen something undeniable. This wasn't ordinary talent. The first company to believe in her was Globe Telecom, one of the biggest telecom giants in the Philippines. Her mother, Riza Eala, wasn't just a supportive parent. She was a former national swimmer and a Southeast Asian Games bronze medalist who later became the chief financial officer of Globe Telecom. Her father, Mike Eala, brought a business mindset into the household. Her brother, Michael Eala, went on to play collegiate tennis at Penn State. This wasn't a family built on wishful thinking. It was a system grounded in discipline, structure, and a clear understanding that talent alone isn't enough. So when Globe Telecom backed an 8-year-old, it wasn't nepotism, it was belief. And belief, when it's real, tends to age very well. Her journey eventually took her to Spain, to the world-renowned Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, the same environment that shaped Rafael Nadal, a 22-time Grand Slam champion. But she wasn't just learning how to hit a forehand. She was being molded. Her game evolved around aggression, taking control of rallies, dictating points from the baseline, and refusing to wait for opportunities when she could create them herself. That mindset wasn't built overnight. It came from endless hours on red clay, under coaches who understood exactly what elite performance looks like, and refused to accept anything less. By 2019, she was just 14, and Nike had already seen enough. Pause on that for a second. Nike doesn't hand out global ambassadorships to teenagers on a whim. This is the same brand that built the mythology of Michael Jordan, the same brand that stood beside Serena Williams through every Grand Slam, every controversy, every comeback. And they chose Alexandra Eala. Not a regional deal. Not a let's see how it goes contract. A global ambassador at 14. That decision alone says more about her trajectory than any ranking ever could. 3 years later, Babolat stepped in. The same French brand that armed Rafael Nadal throughout his legendary career handed her the pure arrow, the same racket line, the same aggressive DNA. And then came the Bank of the Philippine Islands, one of Southeast Asia's oldest financial institutions. They didn't just sign her as an athlete, they positioned her as a symbol of discipline and financial awareness for an entire generation of young Filipinos. This wasn't random. This wasn't hype. This was a pattern. Before the rankings caught up, before the headlines exploded, before the world started arguing over her ceiling, some of the most powerful brands on the planet had already made their decision. They weren't betting on who she was. They were investing in who she was going to become. Before she even turned 18, Alexandra Eala had already built a corporate portfolio most athletes spend a decade chasing. But here's the part nobody talks about. Early sponsorships are bets, not guarantees. And for a stretch in 2025, that bet started to look uncertain. She was losing, not in a way that made headlines for the wrong reasons, but often enough to invite doubt. Early exits stacked up across tournaments in Mumbai, Madrid, the Italian Open, Birmingham, Nottingham, Canada, Japan. And right on cue, the whispers arrived. The same voices that always get louder when a young player doesn't immediately match the hype started circling. Was she truly elite? Or was she a marketing creation wrapped in a Nike campaign? Was the story bigger than the tennis? Then came March 2025, and it erased every one of those questions. The Miami Open, a WTA 1000 event, just one tier below a Grand Slam, and one of the most prestigious stops on tour. She entered as a wild card. In tennis terms, that's a polite way of saying, you didn't qualify through ranking, you were invited. The expectation? Lose early, exit quietly, and make room for the established names. Nobody was watching her. The spotlight was on stars like Iga Swiatek, Coco Gauff, and Madison Keys. She was background noise. And then she started winning. Round after round. She took out players who were supposed to end a run. Then came the moment everything shifted. She stepped onto the court against a 5-time Grand Slam champion, a former world number one of the most dominant forces in women's tennis. And she didn't just survive. She beat her. Not by hanging on. Not by getting lucky. She beat her with a kind of fearless aggression that had been forged years earlier on the clay courts of the Rafael Nadal Academy. Then she defeated Jelena Ostapenko. Then Madison Keys again, the reigning Australian Open champion. A wild card into the semi-finals of a WTA 1000. That doesn't just happen. That defines careers. Overnight, her following surged past 350,000 and kept climbing. But the real story wasn't online. It was in the stands. At Indian Wells Open in 2026, Filipino fans showed up in freezing conditions, flags waving, faces painted, voices gone from cheering. That kind of support doesn't come from marketing strategy. That's something deeper. Something real. Even Gigi Salmon captured it perfectly at a tennis event in London. Her words spread quickly. In terms of appeal, the crowds following her, she might already be the biggest star. Not the best. Not the highest ranked. The biggest star. That's not analysis. That's a signal. And the moment that idea entered the conversation, every brand manager, every sponsorship director, every global company started asking the same question. How do we get our name next to hers? Locally, the momentum turned into something even more personal. In July 2025, Locally Juice officially signed Alexandra Eala, a homegrown partnership that felt less like marketing and more like identity. Then Nike elevated things beyond apparel. For her debut at Wimbledon, the iconic stage at the All England Club, they created a custom hair tie shaped like the sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines. Think about that. $1 billion global brand commissioning handcrafted Filipino cultural symbolism for a 20-year-old stepping onto one of the most historic courts in tennis. That image didn't just circulate, it resonated. And a month later, Nike pushed even further. In August, they released a limited edition shirt designed by Filipino artist Georgina Comunes, blending the sampaguita motif with Wimbledon's signature green. It sold out almost instantly. At that point, the story that had been building quietly behind the scenes stepped fully into the spotlight. But even that, Miami, the viral campaigns, the growing global attention, none of it matched what happened in February 2026. Because this one wasn't about branding. It was about coming home. Milo Philippines announced Alexandra Eala as a brand ambassador. And if you didn't grow up in the Philippines or Southeast Asia, it's easy to misunderstand what that means. Milo isn't just a drink, it's a piece of childhood. It's early mornings before practice. It's school tournaments. It's the foundation of grassroots sport for generations. For over 60 years, Milo built something that didn't exist before: access. From the Milo Little Olympics to community sports clinics, it was often the first place Filipino kids were told, you can do this too. The launch event at SM Megamall on February 22nd was electric. The campaign, Milo's Story, was a national call to move, to get off the couch and onto the court. It even featured EJ Obaina alongside the newest face of Filipino athletic ambition. But none of that was the detail that hit people hardest. It was this: Alexandra Eala wasn't just endorsing Milo. She was a Milo kid. She had run in those races. She had attended those clinics. She had lived that exact experience long before rankings, before sponsorships, before the world knew her name. Now, at 20 years old, ranked world number 29, the highest ever for a Filipino in WTA history, she had become the face of the same brand that first handed her a racket. That's not marketing. That's a full circle. And people felt it. The internet flooded with pride, emotion, and something deeper than fandom, recognition. But when something rises that fast, that visibly, there's always a shadow. Around the same time Milo announced that partnership, misinformation started spreading across platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Posts claimed that Wilson Sporting Goods had offered her a $45 million endorsement deal, complete with fabricated quotes saying she planned to donate the money. It went viral. Over 100,000 likes. Thousands of shares. None of it was real. No deal. No statement. No truth behind it. But it worked because it was engineered to feel true, written in Filipino, emotionally charged, designed to be shared before questioned. Then it escalated. Another wave claimed a billionaire in Abu Dhabi had offered her a staggering $1.6 billion deal to headline a new tennis league. $1 billion upfront. Hundreds of millions annually. Completely fictional. She was in Abu Dhabi at the time, competing in a WTA 500 event. No meeting, no negotiation, no record of anything remotely close. But again, it spread. Not because it was believable, but because people wanted to believe it. That's what makes this dangerous. The misinformation doesn't grow despite her success. It grows because of it. Each real achievement becomes a launch pad for something fake. Each milestone creates space for exaggeration. And slowly, the truth risks getting buried under stories that were never real to begin with. Here's what is real. As of March 2026, Alexandra Eala reached a career-high ranking of world number 29, making her the highest-ranked Filipino in WTA history. She's the first Filipino to break into the top 30, to defeat multiple top 10 players, and to make deep runs at elite-level tournaments like the Miami Open. Her verified partners include Nike, Babolat, Globe Telecom, Bank of the Philippine Islands, Locally Juice, and Milo. Her prize money, around $1.36 million by late 2025, is rising. And within tennis, there are already comparisons forming to Emma Raducanu after her U.S. Open breakthrough, a young player whose story, identity, and timing created something brands couldn't manufacture. Because that's the real pattern here. Filipino identity. Rafael Nadal Academy Foundation. Junior Grand Slam success. A breakthrough run on a global stage. And a fanbase. Not just large, but emotionally invested. That combination isn't something you can buy. It's something that builds itself, over years, across cultures, through moments that feel earned. And yes, she's still losing matches too. First-round exit at the Australian Open. A loss to Linda Noskova at Indian Wells. Defeat against Coco Gauff in Dubai. Those losses matter. Because they remind you of something important. This story isn't finished. World number 29 isn't the final destination. The Milo campaign isn't the peak. And the brands attached to her name right now, they're not investing in what she has been. They're investing in what she's still becoming.